So if you go into Canvas, we want to be looking at aquatic biomes. So we're going to look at the biomes of Georgia. The aquatic biomes of Georgia, but we're also going to focus on close to home. There's some issues going on close to where you are. Good morning, good morning, good morning. All right, got some folks still coming in. All right. While they're coming in, I'll get the share page up. Is there anybody who didn't take the test? I think almost everybody was present the other day. Yes. If you're present today and you didn't take the test, please let me know. I need to give you a code. Samir. There we go. All right. I think we got everybody who is trying to, well, no. I think he might have gave up. All right. Hopefully when y'all get your new books Chromebooks next week, some of these entering issues will go away. And if you're sitting out in the waiting room, it's not that I'm not trying to get you in. It's just that sometimes it's telling me you're joining and you're really not. Like I think somebody just gave up trying. Hope he comes back. All right, so we are looking at aquatic biomes. And in particular, we're going to look at the aquatic biomes in Georgia. There are different types of aquatic biomes. And then we're going to focus on an issue. Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, hopefully the issue with the Chromebooks will be resolved when you get new Chromebooks. They said it has more memory space and all that stuff. Because I think we're crashing because we're all running out of space. I know mine is very slow. I have to do a real big clean on mine to get rid of some old last year's stuff to make room for this year's stuff. Alrighty, so you would join Canvas and read over this page. I'm going to give it another minute. Got some people still trying to get in and I need to do attendance. It's like 5 people. All right, so I asked you the question yesterday, and you haven't had a chance to look at that question. If someone asked you where you wanted to go on vacation, what would your answer be? And maybe we should look at some of those answers first. So this was a graded assignment. And let me switch to that for a sec. That was a discussion question. See where people want to go. I read some that were quite interesting. Let's look at that. And you didn't have to respond to anybody else's. You simply, what is the act? You need to take the test, Jatavius? Is that what you're asking me for? Okay. Actually, I'm going to stop. Folks, y'all read, if you haven't done your aquatic question, please do that because I don't think everybody did. And I'm going to stop sharing for a while I make sure that the test is still open for. Is there anybody reports are going up next week? We want to make sure that you're caught up on all your grades, all missing assignments. Uh, all right, Jatavis, give me 1 second, make sure it's still open. And it is, what's today? It's open till today. So let me make it tomorrow just to be on the safe side. Save. Okay, so it is still open. Here is the code. There you go. Let me know if you have any other problems getting in the test. It's very short. You'll be back soon. All right, that was short because you have a 9-week test coming up, and that will be a little bit longer. All righty. Back to all right, well, while I'm not sharing, let me go ahead and do attendance. All right, good morning, Chris. We're in aquatic biomes in, oops. All right, I also have a lot of people off camera. A lot of people off camera. Please remember that you are supposed to be on camera. All right, Lorelai, you popped out and now I got you up here twice. It's not just you, it's Zoom. Sometimes when you all log out, um, it brings you, you're still in the room technically, but you're not. But it adjusts after a while. I just have to be cognizant of why I got so many people because it gives me it counts you twice. Alrighty, attendance. Authorization. The world has become so complex, we have to be authorized every 2 steps to do everything. Okay. Who are we missing? And then every time I open a page, another one disappears. I know they made upgrades over the summer, and the upgrades seem to have complicated things. Alrighty, got all my pages back. All right, and I'm looking at Go Guardian, and everybody should be in aquatic biomes, please. Aquatic ecosystems. Okay, so you taking. Hmm. Right, and again, while you're waiting for me, if you have not um, answered the question, please take the time to do so. Lorelai, I feel for you. Yes, we are. We are going to talk about Georgia. We're going to talk about all of Georgia. We're going to look at all the different types of aquatic biomes. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And this is just the first of all the biomes that we'll be talking about. Again, we had our organization of life, and ecosystems are the next step up after community. Ecosystems have are now including abiotic. And right now, the question that you were supposed to answer should say aquatic. Give me one second. I'm trying to do the attendance here. Um, what does it say? It's your assignment was, it was a discussion question, and it's called Aquatic Ecosystem Warm-Up. So you should have that both in the module and on your to-do list, Aquatic Ecosystem Warm-Up. It was 4 grades, so if you haven't answered it, please answer it. So I'm gonna get with you in just a second as soon as I finalize this attendance. Make sure that my missing person, there's one. Okay. Right, I was hoping Samir would make his way back, but not so, not so. Okay. Yeah, it seems like everybody is having bad tech problems. Um, just hang in there. Hang in there. There's 2 ways that I'm checking to see that you're, once I check GoGuardian, I also come back to check to see if you're still logged in on Zoom. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm not marking somebody absent who's actually here. That is my tech issue. All right, but I think I got everybody now. Oh, can I save? Then I can close. Okay. All right, so the discussion question And let me look at it from the module because I think you all were in there. Um, right, I did not put it in the module, so let me put it there. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. It's in the module. So if you look before the unit on aquatic biomes, it'll say aquatic ecosystem warm-up for those of you who can't find the question. And we'll come back. So we're going to talk about this for a minute first, and then we're going to come back to the page. Then, like I said, we're going to take a look at an issue close to home. All righty. So it wasn't so much, the question wasn't so much about where you want to go on vacation. It was trying to get you to look at bodies of water out. And even if it's inland, you might have been near a lake, a river, stream. All right, and if I can get this page to come back, I can see you all. Oh my goodness. Technology. There we go. All right. So we have somebody who likes to go to Florida. I love Florida. And then Florida is what we call a peninsula. So you've got water surrounding most of it. So this person likes the other side of Florida. Well, let me see, look at that. That's the Gulf side of Florida. And so they like Panama City Beach. So that's so the what you needed to say here is the Gulf of Mexico is the name of the body of water there. Okay, so that's because it's kind of inland, it's a gulf. Alrighty. Myrtle Beach is my absolute favorite place. In fact, the picture in my background is Myrtle Beach. I am there more than I'm not. And the Atlantic Ocean is beautiful. And like I said, the picture behind me is what I like. I like to get up and watch the sunrise. I don't know why I don't get up and watch the sunrise here, but if I'm at the beach, I'm up to watch the sunrise. So Myrtle Beach, Myrtle Beach. All right. But you were right, Nicola. You got it. You did it good. All right, let's see. I want to go to Mexico. So you got the Gulf of Mexico and the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. Good job. Good job. A lot of water, a lot of water. Because again, it depends on where you go in Mexico. You are kind of surrounded on both sides with different large bodies of water. Okay. Seattle would be the Pacific Ocean. Cool. Go to the beach near the Chattahoochee River. So that's close to home. And we are going to talk about the Chattahoochee River today. And those are man-made beaches. Those when you think of beach, you really think of the ocean, but we have a lot of man-made beaches. Callaway Gardens has a beautiful man-made beach. Where I am, it's closer to Lake Lanier, and they have a very large man-made beach there. Let's see, New York, Atlantic Ocean, and the New York Harbor. Okay. Washington. Okay. And I cannot pronounce those, but I'm going to trust that you've been to Washington and you know what those are. Um, Braylon, can you unmute and pronounce those for me, please? Those rivers in Washington, are you with us? You're logged in, but you're not. See, that's why y'all need to stay close. You never know when I'm gonna call on you. All right, where we going? You don't go anywhere. You don't like beaches. Oh my. Okay, Hawaii on my bucket list, Pacific Ocean. They had a phenomenon this summer that very rarely happens. The Big Island. Oh, okay, you can't pronounce them. Well, I'm glad you know that they're there. All right, pronouncing them is a good trick on some of these rivers for sure. Hawaii had because it's out there in the middle of the ocean, there was a tornado, a hurricane going past the island while the volcano was erupting. So that was a phenomenon that doesn't happen normally. All right. Helen, Georgia, and the Chattahoochee River. Ooh, tubing. Yay. All righty. Japan. Ooh, now we're really traveling. Mexico, Mexico. All right, so I've run out of answers here. Bora Bora. I remember seeing that one. And Brazil or Japan. The Amazon River. We're going to talk about that too because it's in a rainforest. Okay. All right. So again, if you haven't submitted your answer, this was a graded assignment. So make sure you get to submit your answers. Jacksonville. My brother just moved here from Jacksonville. So that used to be my other place that I was always going to. Okay. So that was your aquatic ecosystem warm-up question. And now we're going to look at, and that was actually the question that they started the unit with. And so there are different types of biomes. Good morning, Gabe. We're in Canvas and we're looking at aquatic biomes. All right. So terrestrial biomes are the things that are on land, and they're most of the biomes that we're going to look at are terrestrial biomes, but there are also biomes that are in the water. So there are, and because we have different types of water, fresh water and salt water, we're going to also have different characteristics for our aquatic biomes. Okay, we have the different. The big thing that you need to remember is the Earth is 71% water and 29% land. So we're kind of when you're out in space, you look at it as we're kind of a blue-greenish planet because we're mostly water. There's very little land. However, even though we're mostly water, 96% of that 71 is ocean, which means it is salt water. Okay? So we need to know the difference between fresh and salt water. So there's freshwater biomes and saltwater biomes. Freshwater regions, and this is the part you need to know right here, include wetlands, lakes, ponds, rivers, and streams. Okay. Saltwater biomes include the ocean, coral reefs, and estuaries. And estuaries, we're going to spend a little time talking about that because that's kind of a in-between area. Most rivers on the continent actually run into the ocean somewhere along the way. Rivers, lakes, and ponds, those are kind of isolated areas, but most rivers and streams run into larger bodies and eventually will run into the ocean or saltwater. All right, so as we travel, so our focus is going to be in Georgia. We're going to follow this saltwater places and freshwater places, and closest to us are these three here. Actually, Lake Lanier is closest to me. Chattahoochee River is close to everybody because that's what's running past Columbus. And some wetlands, the Okie, and here's one of those lovely words, Okefenokee Swamp. All right, when we talk about saltwater, we're looking at the Atlantic Ocean, and we're going to take a look at Tybee Island as a location that we will access there. Where there's coral reefs, there's a gray reef and some estuaries, Sapalo Island in Georgia. All right, so this is our map of Georgia. And If you did not already do so, just click on each of these and read up the background information on the particulars about that. What I want to do right now is look at the Chattahoochee River, and you see the location of the Chattahoochee River. It kind of borders out in not kind of borders. It runs through Alabama and it also runs through Florida, which created a problem. So we're going to watch a short video on what we used to call the Tri-State Water Wars. Okay. All right. So read up on, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this because we're the Chattahoochee again because it's closest to all of us, and there's a lot of stuff going on with the Chattahoochee River that involves environmental studies. All right, so I'm going to switch over here and we're going to watch this one.
Georgia spent battling each other in the highest court in the land, all over a river. It wasn't a philosophical debate. It was a brutal, decade-long legal war with real-world consequences for farmers, fishermen, and millions of citizens. The stakes were incredibly high, with Florida claiming Georgia's excessive water use was devastating its oyster industry and ecosystems, while Georgia argued its economic engine depended on the very same water. The core question was simple: who truly owns the water in a river that flows across state lines? The answer, as the Supreme Court eventually revealed, was anything but. It redefines how states must negotiate shared natural resources, especially as water becomes an increasingly precious commodity, legal maneuvers, and unexpected turns. The story begins with the Apalachee-Chattahoochee Flint, a vast network of waterways stretching across Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. For decades, these states operated under what's called equitable apportionment, a legal doctrine where the Supreme Court attempts to fairly divide shared resources. But as it grew exponentially in the late 20th century, Georgia's water demand skyrocketed.
All right, this time it was my turn to get kicked out. It just totally, see, oh yeah, she's back. Yes, I'm back. Zoom just totally shut down on me. Hold on, let me make sure all the stuff is still in place. So hopefully nobody left. Okay. All right. Yep, somebody left me. All right. But hopefully they'll come back. All right. See, we're all having technical issues. And sometimes I have this problem when I share. So let's try to get back to finish watching. And then while the video is called "The War Between Two States," there's actually three states involved. It's Alabama, Florida, and Georgia. Let's see if I can finish this movie without crashing again.
The Supreme Court has original jurisdiction in disputes between states. Florida's argument was direct and compelling. Georgia's unchecked consumption of water from the ACF basin, particularly for agricultural irrigation in its southwestern region, was causing severe economic and ecological harm to Florida's Apalachicola River and Bay. They presented evidence of collapsing oyster
If it
fisheries,
crashes again,
a struggling tourism industry, and irreversible damage to the bay's unique
Only if-
ecosystem, which is a vital nursery for marine life in the Gulf of Mexico. The ultimate request was for the Supreme Court to cap Georgia's water consumption, effectively dictating how much water a
freezing.
sovereign state could use. This wasn't just a request. It was a demand for a judicial solution to a problem that had defied political compromise for decades, setting the stage for an unprecedented legal showdown. Georgia's defense was equally robust, arguing that Florida's problems were not solely, or even primarily, due to Georgia's water use. They pointed to other factors, such as Florida's own management of its waterways, local overharvesting of oysters, and even natural drought conditions. More importantly, Georgia emphasized the massive economic impact a water cap would have on its agricultural sector, a multi-billion-dollar industry employing thousands. They argued that imposing severe restrictions would cripple their economy and unfairly punish its citizens, especially the farmers who rely on irrigation for their crops. Georgia also highlighted its own water conservation efforts, demonstrating that they were not simply taking water without regard for their neighbors. This was a classic legal balancing act. Economic prosperity versus environmental protection, all under the incredibly complex umbrella of interstate water law. And the Supreme Court, rather than hearing the case directly, first sent it to a special master. When states sue each other, the Supreme Court often appoints a special master, typically a highly respected lawyer or retired judge, to oversee the case, gather evidence, and make recommendations. Think of it as a referee in a highly complex, high-stakes game. The first special master in this case, Ralph Lancaster, spent years reviewing mountains of scientific data, expert testimonies, and legal argument from both sides. This process alone cost millions of dollars, as each state brought in top legal teams and environmental consultants. Lancaster's role was crucial, distilled decades of conflicting evidence into a coherent recommendation for the Supreme Court. The legal lesson here is that interstate disputes are rarely straightforward. They demand an exhaustive examination of facts, often extending far beyond simple legal principles. His eventual recommendation, however, would throw a curveball that neither state fully anticipated, forcing them to rethink their entire strategy and the path forward. In 2017, Special Master Lancaster delivered his recommendation. He sided with Georgia. His reasoning was that while Georgia did consume significant water, Florida had not demonstrated by clear and convincing evidence that Georgia's consumption was the primary cause of Florida's economic and ecological harm. He also argued that Florida had not proven that capping Georgia's water use would actually remedy Florida's alleged injuries, citing Florida's own water management practices and oyster overharvesting as significant contributing factors. This was a major blow to Florida, who had invested heavily in this lawsuit. It highlighted a critical legal standard. Simply proving harm isn't enough. You must also prove causation and that your proposed remedy will actually fix the problem. This initial recommendation sent shockwaves through Florida and served as a stark reminder of how challenging it is to win an interstate water dispute, especially when the burden of proof is so incredibly high. But Florida wasn't ready to give up. Despite the special master's recommendation, Florida appealed directly to the Supreme Court. In a surprising turn, the Supreme Court rejected Lancaster's findings in June 2018. They didn't rule for Florida, but rather sent the case back, stating that the special master had applied too strict a legal standard. The court clarified that Florida did not need to prove Georgia's water use was the sole cause of its injuries, only that it was a substantial factor. This was a critical distinction. The court also criticized Lancaster for not adequately considering whether a cap on Georgia's water use would provide substantial benefits to Florida. This ruling was a massive win for Florida, giving them a second chance to prove their case and forcing Georgia to reevaluate their defense. It revealed the Supreme Court's commitment to ensuring a thorough and equitable process in these complex interstate disputes, even if it meant prolonging the litigation for years. With the Supreme Court's guidance, a new special master, Paul J. Kelly Jr., was appointed. This time, the focus shifted to explicitly assessing the benefits Florida would receive from a potential water cap on Georgia. Both states spent millions more updating their scientific models, gathering new data, and refining their arguments. Florida had to demonstrate not just harm, but a clear, measurable benefit to its economy and environment if Georgia's water usage was curtailed. Georgia, conversely, had to prove that any proposed cap would inflict disproportionate harm on its economy without providing significant relief to Florida. This phase became a deep dive into hydrology, economics, and environmental science, far beyond what typical court cases involve. It exemplifies the extraordinary resources required when states go to court, showing how the legal system tries to balance competing interests using the best available evidence, even if that evidence is incredibly complex and costly to obtain. In April 2021, after years of intense litigation and millions spent, the Supreme Court delivered its final verdict. They sided with Georgia. The unanimous 9-0 decision, authored by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, concluded that Florida had still failed to prove that Georgia's water consumption caused significant harm that could be remedied by judicial intervention. The court acknowledged Florida's injuries, but found that Florida had not met the heavy burden of proof required in an interstate water dispute, particularly in demonstrating that a future cap on Georgia's water use would actually address Florida's problems. They cited evidence of Florida's own poor oyster management, including overharvesting, as a significant factor in the bay's decline. This was a crushing defeat for Florida and a massive relief for Georgia. It underscores a crucial legal principle. Even with compelling emotional arguments, the facts, causality, and proposed remedy must meet an incredibly high evidentiary bar when states demand such extraordinary relief from each other. But what does this mean for future disputes? This case, Florida versus Georgia, sets a significant precedent for future interstate water disputes. It clarifies that simply showing harm isn't enough. The complaining state must also prove, with clear and convincing evidence, that the other state's actions are causing that harm and that a judicial remedy will actually fix the problem. The burden of proof is extremely high, reflecting the Supreme Court's reluctance to interfere in the sovereign affairs of states unless absolutely necessary. This means states facing similar issues in the future will need to build an incredibly robust case, focusing on ironclad scientific evidence of causation and the efficacy of their proposed solution. The legal lesson? Don't expect the Supreme Court to easily step in and reallocate resources between states. They expect states to negotiate and manage their shared resources, and only as a last resort, with overwhelming evidence, will they intervene. This case also highlights the incredible financial costs of failing to reach political compromises. The financial cost of this legal battle was astronomical. Florida spent over $50 million, and Georgia spent nearly $60 million, totaling over $110 million in taxpayer money. This money went to legal fees, expert witnesses, scientific studies, and court costs. Imagine what that $110 million could have done if invested in water conservation, infrastructure improvements, or economic diversification in the affected regions. Here's what happens if states fail to compromise. They hemorrhage resources on litigation, often without a guaranteed outcome. This case serves as a stark warning. While the courts are available for interstate disputes, the financial and political capital expended can be immense, and the outcome is never certain. A common myth is that litigation is always the best way to resolve deep disagreements. This case clearly debunks that, showing the crushing cost and the high bar for success. The real mistake here was the failure to find a political solution before it escalated. So, how can other states avoid such costly legal wars? The key lies in proactive, collaborative negotiation and the establishment of interstate compacts. These are formal agreements between states, approved by Congress, that lay out rules for managing shared resources like rivers. For example, the Colorado River Compact divides water among 7 states, though it faces its own challenges with drought. Step by step, states can 1. Initiate open dialogues early. 2. Commission joint scientific studies to establish common facts. 3. Explore flexible sharing agreements that adapt to changing conditions like droughts. And 4. If needed, seek federal mediation before resorting to litigation. The Florida versus Georgia case is a powerful reminder that while the Supreme Court can provide a final answer, it's often an incredibly expensive and unsatisfactory one. Prevention through cooperation is always the better, cheaper path, saving taxpayers millions and fostering stronger interstate relationships. The Florida versus Georgia case is a powerful illustration of the immense legal and financial complexities when states fight over shared resources. It reminds us that while justice is sought, the burden of proof in such high-stakes cases is incredibly demanding, and the costs can be staggering. The takeaway is clear. Prevention through cooperation is far more beneficial than protracted litigation. If you're wondering what happens when a state tries to seize private land for public use, and how the Fifth Amendment protects against that, check out our next video on eminent domain. It's another fascinating look at government power and individual rights. And for more true legal cases told simply, make sure to subscribe.
All right, so this video goes back to showing, well, let me stop this before it just starts another video. All right. So we started the course talking about environmental science being interdisciplinary. So this one showed how you're going to take an environmental issue such as who has the right to use the water, and you made it a political issue, you made it an economic issue, you made it a scientific issue because they had to do research. So there were a lot of key players that went into talking about who has the right to overuse the water. Another river that runs through several states is the Mississippi River. It kind of goes from the north all the way into the Gulf of Mexico. So it doesn't just run through Mississippi, although most of it does, but it also runs through a few other states as well. So you have to look at what's going on in the other cities along the way as far as industrial use, recreational use. When we say industrial, a lot of factories are on the rivers, but also fishing. Fishing is an industry that uses the rivers. And as they were saying in this one, they were worried about their oyster farms being in the river, but there's other fish, other companies. There's Mississippi worries about shrimping. So different rivers have different focuses on their industry that is involved in the river. Somebody mentioned they liked the Chattahoochee because you can go river rafting. Um, so that's recreational use. So if one state is fighting over the use of the other one, do we have the right to block it off so that it stays within one state or another? Those are all issues that have to be thought about when we look at rivers that run through multiple states. They didn't talk about Alabama a lot, but Alabama had a little something to say about this little war as well. All right, what I would like for you to do with the rest of the time is again, look at each of these little icons of the rivers, and then I'm going to, for the next class, I'll have an assignment for you about rivers. The other thing that we're going to move on to is if we're looking at freshwater ponds and lakes. They have different zones. So depending on the zone, it's going to depend on what lives there. So I'd like for you to use the rest of this class time to finish reading this page, answer the aquatic biomes activity, and then next time we meet, I'm going to have some specific questions about the zones. So we got some nice, interesting vocabulary words here. But we have ocean zones, we have lake zones. So depending on which zone you're in will depend on what is growing there. So get familiar with these terms. Photic zone, aphotic zone, intertidal zone, pelagic zone, benthic zone, and abyssal zone. Some of you have seen the movie The Abyss. It's kind of a scary movie, but kind of accurate as to what's going on in the abyss. Okay, so take a few. I'm going to stop talking, give you a chance to read through that, and work on the abiotic challenge. And check on people who were testing to see if that went okay. Yes, this will be on the next test. Also, points from the video will be on the next test because it's important to know that what was the point of we call it the Tri-State War. What was the focus of the Tri-State War? So that point will be on the test. It's not mentioned in Canvas, but it is important. Like I said, I try to, as often as possible, bring in real life situations, case studies of things that are actually happening with our environmental topic that we're on at the time. So the Tri-State War is something that is current. It's kind of settled and not settled, so it's kind of an ongoing thing. It keeps popping up every once in a while. So I do need you to know about that. I do need you to know the vocabulary. We will go back and and if you had a picture like the one they have with the lake, you need to be able to label where is your littoral zone, where is your photic zone, and where is your aphotic zone. If you had the second picture, you need to know if you had a labeled diagram picture, know where the intertidal zone is, the neritic zone, oceanic zone, benthic zone, and abysmal zone. No, you need to be able to label a diagram to identifying where each of those are. In fact, I'm going to try to come up with a little worksheet for you to do that. Okay, so yes, our next test will cover that. And we're not going to do this unit by itself, though. We are going to combine this unit with the next one, which is and I think this was kind of this module is kind of out of place as far as because we started off with an overview of the organization of life, and then the next module also covers that as well. So we're going to look again at the levels of organization, interactions in an ecosystem, and I do have a project coming up for you to do as far as your community is concerned. So we are going to look at that next as well. Okay. Yeah, some of this is all right. Did lose a few people. All right, Gabe, you joined us a little later. Hopefully you're catching up. All right, so everybody who needed to take the test, take the test. That was from last week. All right, that one was kind of short due to some other technical issues. Normally the tests are about 30 questions long and cover more material. So as you can see, this one, that was kind of an introductory topic test. So as we go on, they'll have a little more involvement in them. And some diagrams for you to label and such. While you're looking at the map of Georgia, note the difference between inland rivers and coastal rivers. So we had a couple of places that were close to the coast, and you're going to have different habitats with your coastal ecosystems than you will with inland ecosystems. So while you're reading that over, oh, are you? Okay, so am I. Close to Lake Lanier. Okay. I shouldn't say close. It still takes from my house. It's going to take me about 45 minutes to an hour to get to Lake Lanier, but it's still close. All things considered, everything in Atlanta takes you. I don't live exactly in Atlanta. I live out in the outskirts of Atlanta, but everything around here takes you forever to get to it because of traffic. And the traffic around Lake Lanier is exponential. Oh, that's nice. Makes for a nice drive. Mhm. Thank you for sharing. Yes, I have noticed uh, that we are approaching fall because our nighttime sunlight hours are decreasing. It's starting to get dark around 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock. Not looking forward to that. I enjoy sunlight in the evening. But such is life. Hmm. All right, I also want to say, and this, and my hat's off to almost everybody. Um, my two new students, I need to get with you about what assignments I want you to catch up on. I don't want to excuse, I know you just came, I don't want to excuse all of the ones that you missed. So we need to, tomorrow afternoon during tutoring time, if you could pop in and we can talk about what assignments that you need to complete and which ones you don't. They're doing progress reports next week, so we also want to make sure that if you're missing anything, that you get them in by tomorrow, because they want all the grades in the grade book to be current and accurate to reflect a progress report next week. All right, Gabe, are you with us? Gabe, it looks like you did not take the test. And Ivani is not here. So again, I'll be in tutorial tomorrow afternoon. Pop in and let's get that done. Class is just about over today, so don't need to start a test today, but and folks, when you miss a test, you have a certain period of time to catch up on it. Really should address that the next time you're, but after a while, it does become a zero. So it's up to you to remind me that you still have to take the test and make an opportunity to do that. Again, tutorial time is Tuesdays and Fridays, 1:30 to 2 o'clock. All right, folks, if you're in a good place to stop, go ahead and do so. Have a nice lunch and see you next week.